Today on the podcast, we want to be talking about one of the biggest pieces of news in AI. I'm sure you've heard about it, which is, of course, ChatGPT's new Canvas feature. We want to talk about some interesting things we've recently discovered with this, some use cases we think that you should be applying since this is AI applied, and some things that we haven't heard other people talking about, so we want to bring them up. So there's really interesting stuff in the episode today. Connor, I know you just recorded a YouTube video, and for anyone that doesn't know, you gotta follow Connor over on YouTube. He creates amazing content over there, so go check him out for sure. But Connor, what are you seeing with this new Canvas feature? And is this something, my big question is this something you think you're going to be using daily, occasionally? How important is this?
I think this is huge. I'm almost surprised that it's not getting more traction. So if you don't know what it is, it's if you've seen Claude's artifacts, it looks a little like that. But essentially what's happening in Canvas is it's really meant for writers. So first of all, this is for paid subscribers only. Jaeden and I will say it again. You need to be a paid subscriber to ChatGPT. $20 a month. I know it's not nothing, but it's really, really worth it. And so let me just try to describe it for our mostly audio audience here. So essentially, imagine if you are, well, it's not that you toggle it on, but like you can sort of so you can sort of choose to use the reasoning mode. You could choose to, you choose to use the Canvas model or whatever. So I don't know if this is going to be on by default or not. But essentially what it is, it's like, let's say you say, hey, I'm going to write a blog post about AI and healthcare or something like that. It will on the left, and if you can imagine artifacts, this is going to be easier for you, but don't worry if you can't. On the left-hand side in kind of the column, essentially where it shows all your previous chats and things like that, that kind of column, it will say, sure, I'm going to write you a blog post on this. And then over on the right, as if it's a separate piece of paper, ChatGPT actually writes out the blog post. So instead of you doing a question and then the answer is the blog post and you write another question and you're doing all this scrolling, it's amazing because it's almost like you're talking to the writer over on the left or your writing assistant on the left. And over on the right is the work product. Now, that's already pretty cool, but that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what makes this so amazing, Jaeden, which is the fact that it really acts like a writing assistant. So in the past, you'd have to say, make this more focus on this, or make it longer, make it funnier, make it interesting, make it put a bigger focus, whatever. And then it would be like, sure. And it would rewrite the whole thing. But now, thank God, it does kind of like line item editing almost. So basically you just go over to the right-hand side where the document is, you click on a sentence, you click on a word, you click on a paragraph and say, hey, you're not talking enough about the controversies in here, or hey, this line is too jargony or whatever. And you see in real time, it essentially just edits that line. Jane, this is huge because this is one of the big problems I've always had with ChatGPT, which is you like the product, but you're like, but I just want it to be a little different. And then it rewrites the whole thing and you don't know if you're capturing it. So this is an editor, but it goes beyond that. One of the things that you and I have been yelling about and that I talk about all the time, I know to ad nauseum, I know, but is behavior. How do we get this? Oh, and cool. And if you're online, guys, Jaeden is showing you this right now if you get to see the visual of this. But here's the really cool thing about it. It has a better user interface. So over on the right, it has like these big buttons that say things like, make it longer, make it shorter, but you can slide. It's like a sliding scale, make it longer, or sliding scale for how complex it wants to be, like make it more high school, make it more college, make it more graduate school, and you just slide it. The other thing it does is, well, let me just say first on that, I love that because the problem with ChatGPT and all of generative AI is that we're not used to talking to this like a human. This gives the user a toggle. It's just like your brain can wrap itself around that right away. Oh, I want to toggle it more like this or more like that. That's amazing. But the other cool thing, I'll stop now, Jaeden. I promise I get too excited about this. But it has this other really cool thing, which is just final polish or something like that. And this does something that usually only super users of ChatGPT knew how to do, which is this. If you write something in ChatGPT and then you say, hey, now make this better, that's all you have to do. It somehow comes in magically and transforms itself into a better writer. And it's like, yeah, actually, that second paragraph is weak. And I'm thinking, dude, you wrote that, but okay. But then it's like, here's how we're going to change it. Here's how we're going to make it different. It has all these as buttons. I am excited about how it works. I'm excited about the fact that you can sort of change by line items. And finally, I'm excited by the user interface. To me, it's amazing. What are your thoughts? Sorry, I talked way too long on that, Jaeden. What are your thoughts?
No, seriously, I think it's super, super exciting. There's a couple things that are kind of interesting on the technical side with this that I'm really excited about. If you're watching it over on YouTube or Spotify, you can see, but otherwise I'll just explain what it can do. So the first thing is, if you're going to ask, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that it's actually a whole new technically model if you want to use it. So on the drop down models on ChatGPT, it's like, you can switch between using 4.0 or o1 preview and all that kind of stuff. They have one called GPT 4.0 with Canvas. Something that I thought was cool that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is if you have old chats, or if you start a new chat, right? So like I just started a new chat and I was like, help me write a blog post about AI news. It just whatever comes up with some generic blog post. Um, the problem is like, oh shucks, I forgot to do this chat with the new Canvas feature and I want to test it out. Or you go to one of your old chats, preferably, or like I guess this is probably more likely for me. I have tons of old chats that I go back to all the time because it's like I do the same task and so I use the same chat for that task. Anyways, what you could actually do is when you're using it, you can just switch the model like right in the middle of a conversation, and you can do this, and then essentially you could just say, open with Canvas, um, and right in whatever you're using, it's going to go and redo
Oh wow,
the whole thing, and it opens up the
that's
whole Canvas
wild.
field.
I
This is
hadn't
really
seen
nice because it's a
that.
way to transfer all your old stuff into Canvas essentially, and use it. Now, what's cool about this in particular, Canvas, Connor was talking about all of the really cool features. The one that I'm just a huge fan of is being able to not have to one shot get a perfect output every single time, being able to edit every little bit. So, like, if I don't like the title of my blog post, I'm going to highlight it. Then there's a little button where I can say, ask ChatGPT, and I'll just say, make this funny. And all of a sudden, it's just going to rewrite the one specific line that I'm referring to. And it's going to, you know, it changed my line on my AI blog post one to mind blowing innovations and industry shenanigans, whatever, right? So this is really interesting, and I think it's smart for a couple reasons. Number one, for OpenAI, this is genius. Everyone, when we get like an output that we don't like, we're like, oh, let me adjust my prompt and see if I can just like one
Yes,
shot get this whole thing perfect again. And the problem with that is it's really computational intensive, right? OpenAI is having to rewrite the article every single time, and you might write this thing like 7 times. Whereas if I can just get it to rewrite like one line, that's so that's such a small amount of text that's being rewritten that essentially they're using way less compute. So I think it's really smart. Like, this is going to save them a ton of money. It's going to save you a ton of money. I mean, essentially, assuming you're integrating this into your own software and doing stuff like this. But yeah, overall, I think this is an absolutely phenomenal update. Connor talked about all of the different things on the side. They have 5 new buttons that just are like kind of auto populated. The worst, in my opinion, is add emojis, where you
it's the
can just
worst.
add emojis throughout the whole thing. Not sure your take on that one, Connor.
So I saw that, and I literally was like, I mean, guys, if you can see this, you probably can't because you're probably listening. But like, I mean, it gives you emojis after every like what, like 5 or 6 words, right, Jaden? It's like,
Yeah.
and it's just add emojis. It goes from 0 to 60 on the emojis, and then I was trying to figure out like, is there an unadd emoji? So basically, on the left hand side, where you're kind of talking to the writer, essentially. So on the right is kind of the work product. On the left is sort of your conversation with ChatGPT. And I was just like, can you please take away all these emojis? And it was like, sure, I don't know why you wanted those in the first place, kind of thing. But like, but I'm with you, right? It's the ability to like line item this thing and just change little things. And here's the other thing, Jaden, that gets me so excited about this is that yes, there's tons of cool things that we can do in AI. And I think people get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, there's like 15 video generators. And we love talking about that stuff too, because that's AI, it's the future. Or there's like, this song generator or image generators. These are all awesome. And for some people, they are, hugely practical. And but for the most part, I use them kind of for fun or maybe for a LinkedIn post here and there. But writing is by far the biggest use case. I don't coding is probably also, but what population of the what percentage of the population are coders? So if you are a writer and if you use ChatGPT for writing, which I'm guessing almost everybody out there does, this is really focused on writing. So Claude Artifacts, even though I think Claude does better with voice, it doesn't really focus on better writing. It's still good writing, but ChatGPT has really changed because it's like now you have an editor. It's not that your first shot at writing is better. It's that you can edit everything, and that, as any writer will tell you, it's editing is 50% of the game. So that's what's exciting to me, that people will actually use this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. The one other thing that I do think is really interesting here, so I've been playing around with a bunch of the settings. The main ones, like you mentioned, add emojis is dumb, add a final polish. That's quite useful, especially because you can edit this like a Google Doc and add your own stuff. And maybe you messed up some, punctuation or grammar when you're adding a few things in. So final polish kind of fixes that. Reading level, I think really useful. You go grad, kindergarten. A lot of times people are like, for X, Y, and Z use case, tell it to talk to you like a fifth grader when it's a really complicated topic. So I think that's a great one. Adjusting the length. Sometimes you're like, I wanted a blog post, not a paragraph, make this thing longer. So I think that's great. The last one I want to talk about that I think is fascinating is suggest
Yes.
edits. So if
Yes.
you have something and you tell it to suggest edits, it's going to actually look like it took a highlighter, highlight certain sentences. And in this one particular one I have, it's going to say like, consider adding a specific recent example of an AI advancement to make the introduction more engaging and set the context for readers. There's a button where you click apply, and then boom, it's going to go and just add
It's amazing.
it's going
It's
to go
amazing.
add its like edit in there. This to me is really cool. You don't need an editor. You don't need someone to kind of springboard ideas with. You can do all of that within ChatGPT. So overall, I think they're like, this isn't a new groundbreaking foundational model, but there's so many features in here that are really, really useful that I really believe that this whole tool just got twice as useful,
That's what I'm
if not more,
saying.
from some of these
Jaden,
things.
that's what I'm saying, right? It's not that you said that so well. Like it's not that this is a brand new model because people are always like, well, what's the newest thing? Guys, it just takes what it was already doing and puts it into a better user interface. That's what we need. That's what drives adoption behavior. This is what I talk about with companies all the time. It's like, forget about like whether you have it's you're not going to get in better shape if you have a better treadmill. You just got to get on the dang treadmill, right? So with this, giving people an easier way to use it. And by the way, I love the example that you just used of suggest edits because again, that's that little trick that people used to do, which was, hey, go in there. What would you change? And by the way, I love that ChatGPT is like, yeah, your first paragraph is kind of weak. And again, it's like, again, you wrote that first paragraph, but it takes a totally fresh look. And when as writers will tell you, like a fresh pair of eyes is just absolute gold when you're trying to create new content. This gives it to you. It is like having a writing assistant. I'm telling you, this got no traction. I know some people are talking about it, but people are talking about like Google LM, Notebook LM, which is amazing, creates podcasts. But are people actually using it? I don't know. It's fun, but this will change how people work. Sorry, Jaeden, I get too excited. I got to take a breath. You can close this out. I got to breathe.
Yeah, so overall, I'm super stoked. I'm using this. I'm actively using this. I think this will probably be turn into like something that I actively use. I know a lot of people are using artifacts over with Claude that's got some similar features. Both of them have pros and cons and different things. We'll probably have to do a whole breakdown episode one of these days on that. But overall, kudos to the OpenAI team. We're really excited to see what they come up with next. Really crossing my fingers and hoping that Sam Altman doesn't complete his villain arc with his new $10 billion in funding that he's about to pull in. But the product is awesome. So I'm loving the product so far. And assuming he doesn't start, doing some crazy earth shattering, destroy the world stuff, I'm still a big fan of the OpenAI team. So if you enjoyed the episode today, make sure to drop us a review. If you've never heard us ask for a review before, which is probably likely because Connor and I, we never ask
We
for
never even
reviews,
talked
right?
about it. We never even talked
But
about
if you yeah, never. But if you haven't done it, seriously, today is the day. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your reviews. Makes our day. We hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, and we will catch you next time.